Hello, this is Diablo68 from Gaming Existence, and today we're doing some help and tips, and that is regarding a board game, Star Wars Imperial Assault. So let's get into it. In the video today we're going to be looking at how to set up the Imperial Agenda deck, how that works, and we're also going to take a look at when you actually finish a mission, how the item decks work, how many you get, how you use the agenda deck, and also then what you do with the missions going forward. So let's get into it. A lot of people get confused by the rules in the manual regarding the agenda deck, and partly of that is because in the core campaign you only start with 6 different agenda piles. But basically what you get to do, you get to select each of these are in sets. So if we look at the top right, you can see Imperial Industry, Imperial Industry, Imperial Industry. All of these agenda cards are in sets of 3, and you get to choose 6 sets of 3 for a total of 18 cards. In the base set you only start with 6 sets of agendas, so you basically shuffle all of them together. As you get more expansions, you could have 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 different agenda decks, however many that they end up releasing, so in which case you would end up choosing the 3 that you want. So for example, say you really want to get Darth Vader, and to be able to unlock Darth Vader, you'd want to take his 3 agenda cards. You couldn't just take this top one of, oh yep, I want Darth Vader. You have to take all of the agenda cards associated with it. And what you would then do, once you've selected all of those, you would shuffle them together, and that forms your agenda deck. The agenda deck works in a similar way to the items for the rebels, but the Imperial player gets to choose between 4 influence cards. You can look on here and you can see there's an influence cost to them as well. So the Imperial player gains influence just like credits that the rebels can spend. You would spend however much you've got equal to influence. So say I had 4 influence, I could either get one of these influence cards here, or I could buy both of these influence cards. Any influence cards not taken I'll put back into the agenda deck and shuffled so that you could potentially draw them next round. At the end of a mission, the mission will state, depending whoever the winner is, how much experience each player gets and how much gold, or sort of how many credits they get or influence they would acquire. So when it comes down to the end of a mission, the rebels say gain their 800 credits or 1000 credits, whatever it is, and then they would get item cards. So you would get at the start of the mission Act 1 cards, and they would get to choose between 6 Act 1 cards. And then the deck would be shuffled, and they would get to choose these cards. Any which aren't taken are put back into the Act 1 deck and then shuffled, ready for the next end of the next mission, where another 6 would be dealt out. So they could see the same cards, it could be different. Where this gets changed, and a lot of people do this wrong, is the fact that on the back of the manual it will tell you what tier items you get. It will say tier 1 items, and then it will say tier 1 and tier 2 items. This doesn't mean you get 3 of each, it means you get 6 of each. So on the ones where you get a crossover, the rebel players get to choose between 12 items to go through, and then normally there's only one crossover one, and then on the next round it would just be tier 2 cards to choose from. So they do get an option of 12 to look through. The agenda cards that you pay influence for come in different forms, and they can be, for example, if we look at this one, it's just a one-time effect. So if you get to play this card, it makes it so your troopers can double shoot, and then when the troopers are destroyed or at the end of the mission, you discard this card. So this card goes out of the agenda deck, it's completely gone. And then if we look at restorative supplies, place this card in your play area, deplete this card at the end of the round, choose 1 Imperial figure and roll 2 red dice, the figure heals. So that is in your play area, constantly in your play area, but it's a one-time use in an entire mission. You flip it over, but when you go over to the next mission, you get to keep it. When you go to tactical explosives, you can see this one it's a one that effectively sort of stays in your hand, a one-time use, but after you play it, you can either discard it to get it out of your agenda deck, you don't want to draw it again, or you can shuffle it back into your agenda deck, hoping that you'll get it again for 1 influence to keep the rebels on their toes. And you also get ones which, these ones look slightly different, have like a different border, and these ones are additional missions that you put into play, and if the rebel players don't decide to do your mission, you gain the reward of that, which I'll explain in a second as we go on to the missions. The mission deck is a random pile of cards which dictate what active missions the rebel players can choose. Story missions are always set depending on who wins the last story mission, but between them you get side missions, and that is denoted by this random deck of cards. To set up the deck of cards, you put 4 random grey cards, shuffle them, deal 4 grey cards face down into the deck. The rebel players get to choose 4 green cards to choose from. These are normally reward cards, so if they really liked Chewbacca or Luke, they might choose those ones, and they get to choose up to 4, and those are also put into the mission deck. You then get a red card for each hero which is being used. So the heroes have specific cards, like this one is for Loose Cannon, is for Mac, I think Temptation is for Diala. So for each of those heroes, they have their set red mission card, those go into the deck. You should end up with 12, or depending how many heroes you're using, and then you shuffle all of this together, and that is now your mission deck. After each mission, so the first mission is always a story mission. After that, you would then you shuffle and deal out 2 cards. These are then the cards that the rebel players get to choose what mission to do. They would choose the mission, to say they choose Loose Cannon. This other mission stays in play, and then when you go to the next side mission, you would just deal out another card, and they would get to choose between those 2 cards. This can be affected, as we were just going over with the agenda deck. The Imperial player can put additional missions into play, so you could end up with, say, 3 missions for the rebels to choose from, or if the Imperial player got even more of these mission cards, 4, 5 if they spent all of their influence. And how these special Imperial missions work is the fact that the rebels get to choose what mission to do, but if they don't choose the Imperial player's mission, then the Imperial player gets the reward, not instantly for the mission they choose, but for the next mission after that. So for example, this mission I think gives you Kane Somos as a villain to use. So say the rebels really wanted to do Loose Cannon for Mac's combat cloak that he gets, then the mission after Loose Cannon, the Imperial player would get to be able to deploy Kane Somos as a villain. The story missions are sort of just little extra fluff cards which can be used, which show you what the next mission it is. But you can always look back to the last story mission you played, and it will always say on there, whoever won or whoever lost. It tells you what the next story mission is you can do. If you did want to, if you were going to finish a story mission, you could then get the story mission card out, put it, say, on top of the mission deck, so that you know, after you've gone through your side missions and then you get to that one, you know which one it is you're playing. But it's just a little extra addition they added to the game. You don't need to worry. You don't even need to use these story mission cards if you don't want to. This was Diablo 68 from Game in Existence with a help and tips video for Star Wars Imperial Assault. I hope it was helpful. Keep an eye out for my other videos. Thanks.